you're in for a treat.
Blog talk, this is the blog talk.
Alim, El-Bey dropping jewels every day.
Blog talk, this is the blog talk.
Metaphysical, we deal with the spiritual.
Blog talk, this is the blog talk.
Alim, El-Bey dropping jewels every day.
Blog talk, this is the blog talk.
Metaphysical, we deal with the spiritual. So you claim to be a god?
Damn right I'm a god. The maker, the owner, cream of the planet Earth, father, civilization, god of the universe. Wow, I didn't know that. Wow, I didn't know that. Wow, I didn't know that. Wow, I didn't know that.
So tune in or lose, friend. All strategies apply mathematically. The information he drop is real powerful. So get your notepad, it's more than an hour full. Watch your jaw, the crew is watching talk. Indigenous to the land wherever we stand. First world order, we bringing it home in the first quarter. Invisible lines don't apply, we cross borders. Silly rabbit, knowledge for gods. No matter where you reside, Lodge, Temple, or Mars. So don't fret or proceed with hesitation. Just tune in to Blog Talk to get the information. Peace.
Whether you suffer from pain in your back to aches in your knees, come on down and purchase you some ancestral tea to get rid of all the parasites, toxins, and fleas. Spiritual elevation for cosmic gravitation. So put away the patience, cause there's no time to be wasted.
Ancestral tea, that's all you need. Ancestral tea,
So you better believe,
ancestral tea,
and it works for real.
ancestral tea,
So put away your pills,
ancestral tea,
that's all you need.
ancestral tea,
So you better believe,
ancestral tea,
and it works for real.
ancestral tea.
So put away your pills. This is a public commercial advertisement for ancestralteas.com. All rights are reserved. Peace.
I don't need to be a dope boy, my poetry is dope enough. Trapping interstellar while my third eye open up. See through all the lies that y'all telling with a straight face. Return of the luminous ones. Y'all better make way to find a chapter. Find a collapse on all you politicians. They politicking how to lead a world, no pot to piss in. The way I think is more deep and in the Grand Canyon. I guarantee this black man would be the man standing. My premonition match the Olmec calendar. It's always accurate like a lightweight challenger. For all you wicked witches and the Wizard of Oz, you and that man behind the curtain, yeah, y'all fixing to fall. Only a matter of time before shit hit the fan. Here's an idiot's guide for you on how to get a man. I don't need a bunch of homies to ride or die with me. I can call on Hey Roo to fly the skies with me. We going through the transition and that's all she wrote. Put on my uncle, gave my Jesus peace back to the folk. Came back for ancient times to bring heaven on earth. I was the last golden child that returns to the birth. We going through the transition and that's all she wrote. Put on my uncle, gave my Jesus peace back to the folk. Came back for ancient times to bring heaven on earth. I was the last golden child that returns to his birth. When I'm riding on the city streets, never really miss a beat. To the point of no return, unless I turn another cheek. Catch me on my daily vibe, smooth as I wanna be. Just being me, never chilling with the wannabes. God in the flesh, dated bad sister latches. Because my history is more than they can understand it. My melanated skin, star brush from the astro. I'm made of dark energy created from black holes. Know thyself, the only one you can lean on. I got some school books that y'all can break y'all weed on. Our here's Martin Luther King and slave ships. But what about the underwater cities and spaceships? My mystical mind, we had the government covering. But if the old man tip will fly away like a mothership, where African people were the real Anunnaki, wearing feathers on their heads just a few feet taller than me. Through the transition and that's all she wrote. Put on my uncle, gave my Jesus peace back to the folk. Came back for ancient times to bring heaven on earth. I was the last golden child that returns to the birth. We going through the transition, and that's all she wrote. Put on my arm and gave my Jesus peace back to the Pope. Came back my angel time to bring heaven on earth. I was the last golden child that returned since birth. Yo, don't look at me the same, I ain't nothing like I used to be. Upgraded daily through the lies and all the foolery. My dream became lucid, I travel back in time, collecting life data for my subconscious mind. That Father let me know that anything is possible by pulling down the universe through my crown chakra. Manipulate the energy is all an illusion. Knowing who you are kills all the confusion. Why 85% judge off my appearance? I use alchemy to create the word potential. My lyrics turn divas right back at the queens. Why dope boys are think twice appearing back on the scene. Everybody gone mad, blaming media outlet. The new Black Hollywood chosen straight out the project. Homo agenda war, sucking up to the master. Why the whole community going up in disaster? We going through the transition and that's all she wrote. Put on my arm and gave my Jesus peace back to the Pope. Came back my angel time to bring heaven on earth. I was the last golden child that returned since birth. We going through the transition and that's all she wrote. Put on my arm and gave my Jesus peace back to the Pope. Came back my angel time to bring heaven on earth. I was the last golden child that returned since birth. Since birth. Since birth.
Peace, back again with your host, Dr. El-Bey, on First World Order Radio. No doubt, we are back once again. Let me bring on my co-host before we go any further. Professor Grand Sheik Fahim R.L., are you in the building?
Hey, hi, Terry, Washington East.
Hey, hi, Terry, Washington East. How you doing tonight, Chief? What's going on with you?
Oh, I'm a little sick, but I'll be all right.
All right.
I just found out I
hopefully, we'll work those out, send that positive energy towards you. And everybody who's listening, make sure you send some positive energy towards Brother Fahim, Rotary L, so that he can be healed and in, good health, a healthy body, healthy mind, spirit, emotions, mental state, etc. All right.
Thank you, brother.
All right, no doubt, Brother L, because we need you, So let's get into tonight's discussion. We're talking about Jesse Williams and the killing of Alton Sterling. Is there a connection? Let's go to Jesse Williams BET Awards. Did you see the BET Awards, Brother L?
I sure didn't.
Okay.
Didn't get a chance to see it.
Okay. Well, brother got, Jesse Williams, who's an actor from the cast of Grey Anatomy, which was basically formed by Shonda Rhimes, who made Scandal and also the Murder Joint, which I can't remember exactly right now, but she made these TV shows, and the brother gets up, Jesse Williams get up at the BET Awards. He's an honoree, and he's being honored as being a civil rights activist, which when you look at his face, he's not really, it don't seem like he's really that, impressed with the title, but this is basically what his speech says. He says, peace, thank you, Deborah, thank you, BET, thank you, Nate Parker, Harry and Debbie Allen for participating in that. Before we get into it, I just want to say I brought my parents out tonight. I just want to thank them for being here, for teaching me to focus on comprehension over career.
Wonderful.
And that they may make sure I learn what the school was afraid to teach me. And also thanks my amazing wife for changing my life. Now, this award, This is not for me. This is for the real organizers all around the country, or all over the country. The activists, the civil rights attorneys, the struggling parents, the families, the teachers, the students, that are realizing that a system built to divide and impoverish and destroy us cannot stand if we do. All right, now that part right there offended, I'm sure, Albions.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I'm pretty sure that offended them. You know, that part alone. But as Dr. Neely Fuller Jr. stated, I think it was in his book, The United Independent Compensatory Code, and it says a textbook or workbook for victims of racism, white supremacy, and he wrote this in 1969, the year I was born, Brother L. Over 45 years ago, and it's called the Code. And he basically says if you do not understand white supremacy or racism, what it is and how it works, everything else that you understand will only confuse you. All right? So,
right.
That particular statement, I'm sure, because it stated as if we're supposed to be happy with the present condition of this society. And we don't have to be. And we don't have to justify our disapproval of such to the Albion.
Right.
You know? Regardless on if you're talking about black-on-black violence, which they love to bring up. We know that exists. But who set the conditions for that to exist?
There you go.
When you dumbing down America, when you teaching, you know, baby Moors that they just came from Africa and you had them all enslaved and they didn't do anything for society or civilization. They didn't have a writing system and so forth and so on. And they still teaching this dumb stuff to our children.
Mm-hmm.
So he says it's kind of basic mathematics. The more we learn about who we are and how we got here, the more we will mobilize. Now, if he's talking about from just a 400-year situation, which probably is less than 15% of us that came here, the vast majority of us, as you know, Brother L, was already here. We was the indigenous people of this landmass, mostly in the southern region, in California, on up along the coast, and across the Great Lake area. He goes on, he says, now, this is also in particular for the black woman in particular who has spent their lives dedicated to nurturing everyone before themselves. Now, there's nothing wrong with that. You know, I mean, he just dropped it that, you know, that black women, they do nurture. A good so-called black woman, she nurtures her man, stands there right with her man, support her man, whatever she needs to do, you know, in order to make him a great man.
Right.
Not just for her, but also for her family, her children, you know, and beyond. You know, he goes on further and says, we can and will do better for you. And that's what this is about, really. And he dropped it right there. Now, what we have been doing is looking at the data, and we know the police somehow managed to de-escalate, disarm, and not kill white people every day. So what's going to happen is we are going to have equal rights and justice in our own country, or we will reconstruct their function in ours. Now, that also bothered people, I'm sure, because many don't want to understand that this is our country. Not just the fact that we are the indigenous people here, the oldest, most indigenous people on this landmass, and that the amalgamation between the so-called Olmecs ascendants, descendants, however we want to refer to them as, who mixed in with those who came from China in 459 AD to produce what we refer to as the so-called red man, or the so-called Indians, in which that we've been taught to state those are the only Indians. Well, we know that we're Aboriginal, you know, and that we're not necessarily Indians in that sense. But the reason why the word Indian was given or stated by Christopher Columbus, allegedly during those early trips of 1492 and 1493, and etc., was because the word Indos was the universal word within Latin, you know, for dark-complected people. All right? During that time, what we refer to now as India was actually called Hindustan. All right? So it wasn't necessarily India during that time period. All right, so we have to look at these particular things too. All right, he goes on to say, now, I got more, y'all. Yesterday when we've had been young, would have been young Tamar's Wright's 14th birthday. So I don't want to hear any more about how far we've come when paid public servants can pull a drive-by on a 12-year-old playing alone in a park in broad daylight, killing him on television, and then going home to make a sandwich. Tell Rakia Bao how it's so much better than it is to live in 2012 than it was to live in 1612 or 1712. Tell that to Eric Gardner. Tell that to Sandra Blaine. Tell that to Doreen Hunt. And now we can say, tell that to Alton Sterling. All right, who just got killed. All right. And this was also on television, on camcorder. And it is up all over Facebook right now. We even posted on our page how this brother, who was just simply selling CDs, Brother L, you know, and had permission from the store owner to sell DVDs in front of his store, as he'd been doing for quite some time, obviously. Him and the store owner had a good rapport. Someone called on him about selling DVDs or whatever the case was. The cops come. They hemmed him up, throw him to the ground, shoot him 6 times, Brother L. Three or so in the front, turn them over and shoot them again. And then plant a gun on them. This is what happened. Have you seen the Brother Al?
Yeah, I've been having a rough time with some health issues, so I haven't.
Right.
Man. Well, what was done about the policy holds then?
Yeah, well, this happened in Baton Rouge, Louisiana, Brother L, out there towards your way.
Okay.
You know, and this is the nonsense in which that is taking place. But this reminds me that in the late 1600s, they had what was called the Casual Killing Act. And it stated that it was okay to kill a so-called black if you were correcting them.
Oh, man.
No, this was actually an act called the Casual Killing Act of 1669, Brother L, declaring that it was legal the killer slaves, as they were referred to us as, even though we weren't never slaves because we didn't come from Yugoslavia, and we was not Slavic, we never speak Slavic, so there was no possible way that we could ever have been called a slave. Just showing and proving that the first Albions that came here were the ones who were the slaves from that particular region or area. And whereas that the only law enforced for the punishment of refactoring servants resisting their masters, mistresses, or overseers cannot be inflicted upon it says upon Negroes, nor the obstinacy of many of them by other than violence means suppressed. But it enacted and declared by this grand assembly, if any slave resists his master or other by his master orders correcting him, and by extremity of correction should chance to die, then his death shall not be considered a felony. But the master or that other person appointed by the master to punish him be acquitted for molestation, since it cannot be presumed that the malice existed, which alone means murder, a felony, or that anything should induce any man to destroy his own estate. In other words, property. This is what it says, Brother L.
That's some wild shit there.
Yeah.
That's wild. Excuse me.
Yeah.
No, you got your parents on excuse me. That's wild.
Yeah, exactly. Now, this is what he's talking about, and this is what is going on, this racial profiling, this police brutality. But yet, we're not even U.S. citizens. So this is the main thing that needs to be getting out. But see, because many believe that they're U.S. citizens, they allow for this to take place. They have never done anything about it and don't know what to do about it. But that's the reason why we keep telling people to declare their nationality, to make that separation from them in that regard, because anything that they do, it will have to be under jurisdiction. You already are not a so-called U.S. citizen.
A lot of them believe that they are, though.
Yeah, many do.
A lot of them do.
Mm-hmm.
Really believe that they're U.S. citizens. If you tell them that, they think you're going out to lunch. I mean, they said it was because they were born here, that means they're U.S. citizens, But it's not what they think what it means. They think they're employees of the United States Corporation. And they're aboriginally indigenous to the land. So they can't be employed. They can't be U.S. citizens.
Right.
So, that needs to get out, though. And I always stress that a lot, too, that they're not U.S. citizens. And then explain to them why. I always tell them to go check out the Black's Law Dictionary, the 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th, and 7th editions of the Black's Law Dictionary, or the Bouvier's Dictionary,
Right.
It'll tell you. These are books dealing with congressional law and law.
Right. He goes on, brother, and it says, now the thing is, though all of us in here get money, the alone isn't going to stop this. That alone isn't going to stop this. All right, now dedicating our lives to getting money is just to get it right back for someone brands on our bodies when we spend centuries praying with brands on our bodies, and now we pray to get paid for brands on our bodies. All right? Now, that was for us to understand what is going on, understand that we use the money, giving it right back to them in order to get branded, which is tattooed, with a lot of times silly tattoos, that has no relevance just because you like the design or whatever the case is being utilized. He says there has been no war that we have not fought or died on the front line of. There has been no job we haven't done. There is no tax that haven't levied against us. Now, are we supposed to be paying taxes, Brother L? Based on Article 1, Section 2 of the Constitution, we're a 3/5 person, and it says Indians and those 3/5 persons not supposed to be paying taxes. So you find out, even, I remember I have a lawyer friend, and he told me that he was listening to the proceedings of the House of Representatives and the Senate, which is, i.e., Congress, the United States Congress, not the Congress Assembly, which is two different things. That wasn't convened any longer after the so-called Civil War of Abraham Lincoln. So they had to come in with the de facto, even more de facto form of the so-called United States Congress. But nevertheless, he said he was watching it, and one of the senators stood up and said, well, the only ones who don't pay taxes are the Moors. And so after he heard that, he really started listening and started coming to class because we was doing classes by that time for years and years and years, every Wednesday, 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, the same time that we do these radio shows, but the same time that we used to do classes for free for over nearly almost 25 years. But he used to come to the classes about 10 years ago or so, and he said he heard this on TV during one of the sessions of Congress. So the Moors are not supposed to be paying taxes. Now, how do you do that? There's several ways. You have first get nationalized, not naturalized, two different things, even though the word naturalized is embedded inside of the definition of nationality. Naturalized is for someone who's foreign. You're not foreign. This is what they're trying to state, that you're foreign. No, you're foreign to their jurisdiction, not to this country, or as they would say, to a country or to America. You're not foreign to America. You are the aboriginal people of America. But you are foreign to their jurisdiction. This is what is based on the Dred Scott case decision of 1856-1857, when Judge Taney stated that there's nothing that a so-called Negro has, that a black man has, that a white man is bound to respect. Mm-hmm. And went even further and stated that they're not U.S. citizens, nor will they ever be, in reference to us.
That's right.
So since that is the case, that would be good that we're not U.S. citizens, because the 14th Amendment was never fully ratified to begin with.
Right.
So we're looking at something in which that can be solved quite simply by declaring our nationality and simply backing away from these particular laws in which that they have fronted on us this whole time and perpetrated against us. They perpetrated a fraud against us, utilizing these particular so-called laws. The voting right bill, I mean, look at that. We're the only people in America, all right, in which that has to have a president to sign or autograph a so-called act, a voting act, for us to participate in every 25 years or so. So, I mean, this is what is going on, all right? So, let's look at it. He goes on and say, he said, there is no tax that haven't been levied against us, and we've paid all of them. And why should we pay taxes when you are on our land? The Empress already said, Empress Frediasi Tournica Gaston El-Bey, or Washington Tournica Gaston El-Bey, already stated years ago when she was living that they need to get up off our land and pay us rent. And she's right.
Mm-hmm.
But it looked like we paying you taxes when you're on our land. But freedom is somehow always conditional here. And see, that's it. He said, but freedom is somehow always conditional here. You're free, they keep telling us, but she would have to be alive if she hadn't acted so free. And he's talking about who? Sandra Bland. Same thing with Alton Sterling. If he was so free, he wouldn't have got bullets in his chest, in his head, in his back. Laying on the ground, trembling to death, literally. And they showed this on TV, Brother L. Now, freedom is always coming in the hereafter. But you know what? Though the hereafter is a hustle, you want it now. Exactly. Bob Marley told us that. Why wait for yours in heaven when you can have yours on earth?
Exactly. Right about that.
You know, Bob Marley said that best. And he said, so let's get a couple of things straight. Just a little side note. The burden of this brutality is not the comfort, it's the comfort the bystander. That's not my job. In other words, it's not our job as so-called Moors, i.e. so-called black people, to have to be wholesome and gracious to the Albion as he damn murder us.
Right.
And brutalize us. That's not our job, all right? He said stop before that. If you have a critique for the resistance, for our resistance, then you better have an established record of critique of our oppression. If you have no interest, in equal rights for the so-called black people, then do not make suggestions to those who do. Sit down.
There you go.
All right? That's what he said. He said, we've been floating this country on credit for centuries. Now, this is what he says now. We've been floating this country on credit for centuries. And we're done watching and waiting while this invention called whiteness use and abuse us, bury black people out of sight and out of mind while extracting our culture, our dollars, our entertainment like oil, black gold, ghettoizing, and demeaning our creations, then stealing them, genifying them, and our genius, and then trying us on like costumes before discarding our bodies like rinds of strange fruit. The truth is that just because we're magic doesn't mean we're not real. Damn, now, when he said that shit, that means he read the same article that I read, in which that stated that Europeans, the Albions, have the tendency to think that so-called black people can't feel the exact same way that they feel. But it's the other way around. They're the one who lack melanin. Mm-hmm. So our feelings and expression is much more than theirs. Because, hell, anybody can tell that from the sports that we played, the songs that we sang. Who has more soul? Soul is the filler or the emotions. The less melanin, the less soul, the less feelings. This is why, like he said, they can go home and make a sandwich. I can't go home and make no goddamn sandwich if I harm or kill someone.
Right, if I done that, some shit like, if I done some crazy mess like that, no, right. I couldn't have done, no.
Right, even that white boy who killed the 9 people in the church in South Carolina, Ruth. The roof is on fire. We don't need no water. Let them burn. 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 His name is Roof. Dalen Roof or something like that. They damn took his ass they took his behind to Burger King and got him a Whopper. A burger, Brother L. On the way down to the jail.
He ate that burger too, didn't he?
I'm sure he did. And he goes on to say thank you. That is what happened, you know. And so we find out that because of his speech, Jesse Williams' speech that he did on BET, that there's a petition out, you know, that's trying to fire him from Grey's Anatomy for denouncing racism and stand zero chance, you know what I'm saying, of them, of course, you know. And I think probably, put it this way, let me just say, I think because of that speech from last week is what we're seeing now, a week later, with the death of Alton Sterling. That was the repercussions for that speech. See, their KKK-ness is organized. They have the Fraternal Order of Police. That's a Masonic order.
Right.
So they watch each other's backs.
That's why Ray Higgins took up for the cop that killed Michael Brown.
Uh-oh. Come on, Brother L. You done hit the topic. Come on.
Brother Abdullah Bey from New Jersey. He told me that. He said Brother Ray Higgins took up for the cop, what was his name? Wilson.
Yeah. Darren Wilson.
For
right.
For murdering his brother, Michael
right.
Wilson. Michael Brown.
Darren Wilson. Or Darren Wilson, whatever his name is, right.
See, he's
Dan Wilson should be his name.
Ray Higgins
damning him to hell. Dan Wilson. Right.
He's a member also of the police order, the order police, which is
correct.
a Masonic order.
Mm-hmm.
Ray Higgins is a member.
Right.
That I do know.
Right. Yeah.
So that tells me a lot about Ray Higgins.
I mean, this video was actually him justifying, in a sense, and he basically said that, you know, that police are trained in order to put you down. Well, what about when they already have you down, like they did Alton Sterling? They already had him on the ground, Brother L. Already had him in cuffs. And still end up with 6 bullets in you. Anyway, the petition, which was started July the 1st, 5 days ago, had about 11,600 signatures by Tuesday morning, accusing him of making a racist hate speech against law enforcement and white people. And they called for Shonda Rhimes, who was the show's creator, to cut him loose. All right, that's what happened. But like I said, she's the one who also did Scandal, How to Get Away with Murder. She's the one who did these. She's the sister who doing these type of shows here, and I won't get into that type of information on that, but she dismissed, actor Isaiah Washington when he made those comments in 2007 about about homosexuality, about homosexuality. But it doesn't seem as if she's going to do anything with this, at least not as of yet, and it's not like it's really up to her. She's on ABC.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? You know, as a matter of fact, she said, people, boo, don't need a petition. That's what she wrote. She tweeted that. All right. Now, you know, a lot of people had a problem with Jesse Williams because his mother is a European, Albion, you know. So, you know, they look at him, you know, and whatever the case is, you know, and see someone who's light-skinned, light eyes, you know, act as if he's not supposed to say something, even though he still have to deal with racism, obviously, because he have studied it, you know what I'm saying? And matter of fact, he even goes on and even tweet himself. He said, do not promote empty people and their tantrums. Pure clickbait to gain followers, attention, and money for themselves, not you. Never you. And that's what he wrote. He tweeted.
So,
and he called for
it.
Right, and he called for an end to racial inequality and the police killing of black people. But we got to keep reminding people that the word black person is a generic term based on Black's Law Dictionary, 4th edition, Brother L.
Mm-hmm.
Is a term in which that gets no recognition in a court of law. It is generic. So we keep letting them define us, and that's done purposely to keep us at that particular level. Now people say, well, you know, we are citizens. Oh, we are? Well, you know, that's debatable. But what's your thoughts on that, Brother Al? Because, you know, I'm sure you done heard him say that. I think you even said that a little bit earlier, that they said that that we're citizens. We fought for this country. We died for this country. You know, I'm a citizen. I voted. God damn it, I voted.
With their permission.
Right. You know, right. Explain to him, Brother Al.
Well, like you said earlier, Dr. Alim, that the 25 years takes for president to sign that into effect. You vote, you know, what they call voting rights. But you have no voting rights. You have voting privileges, but you don't have no voting rights. You know, rights and privileges are two different things.
Right.
And privilege can given to you or be taken to you at any given time. A right is God given to you, you know. Unalienable right, you know.
Right.
So this is what they don't need to understand. So
the Constitution just simply guarantees your unalienable rights.
Yes.
Okay.
You deserve them.
Right. So you already had the right to do what the hell you wanted to do to begin with on your own land. You just allow for someone to coerce you into becoming chattel property. Is that right, Brother Al?
Yes.
Okay.
They won't, they won't correct their names. They want to be Smith, Jones, and Johnson. Black, African American, and people of color.
No, what the hell? But that's my name that my father had, and his father before him.
That's what they'll say too.
I know. But what you got to say to that, Brother Al?
But now you ask the average so-called black woman or man that, or child that, they will tell you, why is your name English, Smith, Jones, and Johnson? And they'll tell you, well, one of my great-grandfathers was a slave, and they get that slave from their slave master. When what they'll say, they're white slave masters. They know, that they have, okay, they're carrying and transacting business and buying and selling in other families' names, but they keep on doing it.
And what about those who have those titles or names, Brother L, but yet do not come from a slave heritage?
They still do it. They're sellouts. They know. You know, you have people from other countries asking the question, why don't they, or they say, well, why don't they change their names back to sort of like an African name or something? Why they still carrying those names? You have people from all over the world asking that question.
Right. I think you said you had an Oriental ask you that, right?
Yeah. She asked me that. Why don't they change it? Why don't they go back, you know, why they still carrying their names? Because they believe that's actually their names. They believe they're U.S. citizens. When I was in the hospital last week, I found out that I had neuropathy. And this nurse was pushing me around. She was Vietnamese. I asked her, what's your nationality? She said, Vietnamese. I thought, oh, you want to say Vietnamese American? She said, no, Vietnamese. I said, oh, she knows who she is. So I mean, they think that they're Americans. Yeah, they're Americans, all right. They're Americans more than what they think they are.
Right.
More than what they think they are. But what they don't know is that they don't know that they're Aboriginal indigenous Americans.
Right. Exactly.
That's what they don't know. You know, you say Indian, they be looking at somebody looking like Cochise or Sitting Bull. You know,
right.
On pictures. They don't see themselves as Aboriginal indigenous people.
Right.
Of the Americas. And this is our problem. This is our problem. The reason why we're getting treated the way we're being treated. And in this day, 2016.
Right. So are you saying, brother, that we're not U.S. citizens, but we are the most indigenous Aboriginal Americans of this land? Oh, okay.
Look in Chambers etymology dictionary. Aboriginal, ab meaning the very first.
Right.
Original, the very first original.
Right.
I mean, hey.
Now, that's just as simple as it gets.
Yep.
All right. Now, we've been saying the same thing now. Like I said, I've been saying it for over 15 years. But that is it. You know what I'm saying? That's just as simple as it is. You know, what's your thoughts on it, Brother Al?
Well, like you said, you've been saying this for 15 years. Been trying to talk a lot to these so-called black people and telling them who they really are, you know, and who they are not. You know, they're not U.S. citizens, you know, they're not employees of the United States Corporation. And that's what you're telling them. But, like I said, one on a blog talk show I gave, I would tell them that, you know, when you fill out an application, you know, or resume, anything like that, and you telling them, they ask you, are you a U.S. citizen? That's not what they're asking you. They're asking you, are you an employee of the United States Corporation? Because most people think that, you know, when they ask you that, they think that, are you born here legally, you know, to work here legally? You know, that's not what they're asking you, but that's what they think. That's what they're asking them. So they check the box, yes. You know, but they, unknowingly, you know, they keep on admitting the jurisdiction. You know, keep on going to court. You get some sisters and brothers want to claim, think they have nationality, and when they hit these courtrooms and talk about their name is Richard Jones Bey and Alan Williams El-Bey and Daniel Green L, but don't have no, for one thing, that those are not true, those not real national names, and the second, they don't have no paperwork to back it up. So a lot of them wind up in jail. This is what's going on next.
Right.
This is what's going on. So, then you try to tell them, a lot of them tell you they don't need no paperwork, this ignorant mess. Well, they done paperwork on you, fool, when you were born. They done paperwork on you.
Right.
The birth certificates, it goes to the, U.S. Census Bureau, Department of Commerce, and the Recorder of Records and Deeds and Vital Statistics, and the Federal Reserve System. Now, from the day you were born, you already obligated to the so-called national debt. But they know what we get. Brothers around here talking about that Europeans don't care nothing about, or what they say, white folks don't care nothing about papers. Yes, they do. That's why you have to do papers to get a lot of this undone.
Right.
That's why you need. That's why you have to have affidavits, writs, and other documents, other documentations to tell the world that this is not who you are and this is who you are. It has to be put on the public record. This is this has been a big problem with a lot of other so-called black revolutionary groups, still calling themselves black, African American. Some call themselves Nubians, or whatnot, Zulus or whatnot. I don't have no problem with calling a Zulu or Nubian. I just call them a Nubian Moor or a Zulu Moor. It's still Moors.
Right.
Especially among the Hebrew Israelites. I'm not a Moor, I'm a Hebrew Israelite. Yeah, but you're still a Moor, brother.
Exactly.
What country named Hebrew Israelite?
Right.
I know no country. So therefore,
and let us state this too, Brother El, that for those who don't understand what Brother El is talking about, the word America or Amaruka or More or Moru is the word in which that the word America stems from, and the word Moru or Meru is the word more. So this is what is really going on. This is how we've been tricked from out of our birthright.
Yeah.
Right? And how we've been really, if you want to know the truth of it, Martin Luther King said it best. He said, when the Negroes languish in exile on their own land.
Mm-hmm.
He says this. He says, and this was in his Martin Luther King I Have a Dream speech, text and audio.
Mm-hmm.
He says, 100 years later, the Negro still is not free, languishing in the corners of American society and finds himself in exile in his own land. This is what Martin Luther King said.
Mm.
And and if you go to the letter from Birmingham jail, I think that was written April the 16th, 1963. He says, before the Pilgrims landed at Plymouth, we were here.
That's right.
All right, and so if you go back to and see, this is the Martin Luther King that that was getting out of hand for them, because he was a Mason and he was giving out all these clues. And he goes further and says, what the Negro wants and will not stop until he gets is absolute and unqualified freedom and equality here in this land of his birth, and not in Africa or in some imaginary state. The Negro no longer will be tolerant of anything less than his due right and heritage. He is pursuing only that which he knows is honorable, his.
Mm-hmm.
Now that's Martin Luther King, 1965, Playboy.
I guess that's when he decided he had to go, huh?
Well, and then him talking about the Vietnam War.
Yeah.
And basically saying the same thing that Muhammad Ali said, that the Viet Cong ain't never called me niggas.
Right.
Why be fighting in a white man's war? But Martin went further. If you go to his book, Where Do We Go From Here? Community, Chaos or Community. He said we're approaching the area where the voice of the Constitution is not clear. We have left the realm of constitutional rights, and we are entering the area of human rights. Damn, that's blatant.
Mm-hmm.
The Constitution isn't clear because they still identify as 3/5 humans in Article 1, Section 2, even though they claimed that the 14th Amendment superseded the Dred Scott case, but yet they never appealed or repealed the Dred Scott case.
No, they didn't.
They never changed it on the law book.
They never overturned that decision.
Right, they never overturned it. But allegedly the 14th Amendment superseded it. How? When the shit was when the 14th Amendment was never fully ratified.
No, it was not.
And Malcolm goes further in explaining this. El-Haj Malik El-Shabazz, or Omar Wali, the son that has come home, he says human rights come before civil rights. We can never get civil rights until we have human rights. Human rights represents the rights to being human beings. Whenever you are respected and recognized as a human being, your civil rights are automatic. No, we have to get recognition of human rights first. The Constitution classified our people as 3/5 of a man, which meant subhuman, not a complete human being. And once our human characteristics were completely destroyed, this gave them justification to treat us like we were animals. And this is what is going on. This is why we began slaughtered in the streets. He goes on. Then it also justifies them killing us. If the black man, human rights were respected, he never would have been a slave here in America, or, as we say, the United States Corporation. And if his human rights had been restored by the Emancipation Proclamation, automatically we would have been citizens after the Civil War. So here he is talking about this in 1963, that we still was not recognized as citizens. So, but I thought the 1868, the 14th Amendment made us, 13th Amendment freed us, and allegedly the 14th Amendment made us citizens. That was 1868 when they claimed that the 14th Amendment made us citizens. So why is Malcolm, El-Haj Malik El-Shabazz, Omar Wali saying that it did not? He said we would have been citizens after the Civil War. So we must be recognized as human beings. Our human rights must be respected before we can ever be recognized as citizens, and our civil rights be respected. So we're not going to be respected until we are first recognized as human beings.
Exactly. They got to get this through their heads.
Right. So people need to do some research on the laws of nations.
Yeah.
Which is a private international law between sovereign individuals, families, tribes, courts, grand juries, townships, counties, states, and nations. They need to do some research on this, on the laws of nations. Because the laws of nations, the laws of sovereigns, derived from the principles of natural law. And this is what is meant by family. We need to come back and link ourselves to the family of nations, to the laws of nations. Anything you want to drop on that, Brother Al?
Yes, that's one thing they have to learn how to understand. You know, it's not about civil rights. It's about human rights. And they understand that the only way they can have that is nationality and birthright.
Right.
They have to have the reclaim or have the reclamation, you know. And kind of come out of these European families' names. Not slave names, because slaves identify as Europeans.
Right.
But out of these other European families' names, which are branded. The common word they use now is black, African American, and people of color. These are the common words they use today. I mean, very rarely you hear the word Negro or colored people.
Right.
You know, but that's why you notice a lot of times when I give a lecture on the Blog Talk Show, I always use the word African American, black, and people of color.
Right.
You know, which neither one has no connection.
Right.
You know,
but we just be saying this, people, because this is what y'all been used to hearing.
Right.
So we trying to get y'all to understand, overstand, understand, you know, these words, you know, are artificial labels used to define us and distract us from our land connections. And the reason why we use the word more is simply because it is embedded inside the definition of land.
Right.
If you want to say legally or lawfully, but you still must have a tribal nation connected to the status more.
Right.
You just can't be a more. You must be connected to a nationality, hence a tribal nation, such as Washita, Lenape, Choctaw. And, of course, the most indigenous name would be best suited. All right? So, like, for example, the court case, the United States versus the heirs of Henry Turner, case 32, also the United States Appeal Court in 1850, was an appeal to an earlier case won by the heirs of Turner, called the heirs of Turner versus the United States case 191 in 1848. All right? And in other words, on June 6, 1848, a Supreme Court decision read by Theo H. McCallum, who was the judge, or as we say, the bankruptcy administrator, declared that the United States did not own the land of the ancient ones, the mound builders of North America, which is actually more than 30 million acres of land, ranging from out of spreading from out of Louisiana into Alabama, into Florida, on up into almost the whole of Canada, called the Louisiana Purchase. The Louisiana Purchase was never purchased. You really do an in-depth study. All right? You do a real in-depth study, you will find that it was never purchased. All right? Thomas Jefferson gave his sentiments at the time. You know, and stated that it wasn't.
Yeah, Thomas Jefferson, the one that talked to George Washington to not pay the tribute treaties that they were paying the Moors at the time. And that's what brought on the 1801 to 1805 and 1812 to 1815 Barbary Wars.
Right.
They were waged against the Moors, but this is not taught in our schools.
Right.
Textbooks. that they Europeans used to pay us tribute.
Right. And this is found in two books, particularly called, actually, the Barbary, Wars, and I believe that was by David McRitchie, and then the one before that is 2 volumes called The Ancient Britons, The Ancient and Modern Britons by David McRitchie. He speaks about how these European countries, England, France, Spain, Portugal, Germany, et cetera, had to pay us tribute in order to even sell the so-called 7 seas, or in particular the Atlantic, even though there's more than 7 seas, y'all. There's about 32 or so. But they had to pay us in order to even get on the waterways. And this is what they get now of us paying land travel, what is called tolls. Okay, this is where they get this from. All right, and when you read the Dred Scott case, you go to the Black's-Law Dictionary. It says the case in which the United States Supreme Court held that the descendants of Africans who was imported into this country. Now, understand, this was the trick that they did, because all of us was not imported here, but they brought over less than 15%, and then said all of us came from Africa, and then began to start teaching us that, because remember, we started going to the school system. And then it says, and sold as slaves were not included nor intended to be included under the word citizens in the Constitution, whether emancipated or not, and remained without rights or privileges except such as those which the government might grant them. That's what that meant. That so-called blacks were not considered citizens. They are still considered slaves or chattel property by the United States Corporation, i.e. the so-called government.
What do you think about the so-called black policemen and women and FBI and mayors and governors, senators? It makes you think about that, But Obama, he's have a national name.
Right.
He's a Moor,
Yeah.
So,
right, he changed his name from Berry Soweto or Soweto, whatever it was in Indonesia, to back to Obama, Barack Hussein Obama. He didn't keep as president coming up in there with Berry.
No,
he didn't come up in there with Berry now.
So he has a free national name. So.
Right. He had to show y'all, that this is how it's done. You don't keep that slave name. And then, like we spoke about before, how he got on the Tom Joyner Morning Show and broke down how he's not black. Black has no ethnicity and have no landmass ties. I mean, this is some powerful stuff, But people not looking at these things, because the only thing they keep looking at is, well, here he's speaking on black people's behalf. Well, black people have to get themselves from up out of this condition and show that they have a desire to get up out this condition first before anybody can speak on your behalf.
Or else it's just fruitless. Just a waste of time.
Yeah.
Then they'll send somebody, out, a so-called black person, to assassinate you.
Right.
This is the kind of craziness that's going on, How do you fill out so-called black people and sell each other to the last dollar, you know.
Right.
And they're not, nowhere near conscious or cognizant. Some people use. So they have no real feelings about it which way or the other. They don't feel it affects them.
Right.
We got some so-called black people talking about I'm Creole. You know, okay, what country is that?
Right.
No. They think they're different from the other Asiatic people, you know, but they're not.
Right.
And then they
I know even Prophet Noble Ali stated that the Moors weren't coming to their own until, year 2000. And that was around the time when the Moorish Renaissance began, and this awakening definitely began to occur at a more massive level. And what we are seeing is this take place at a all-time high level of this word getting out and people coming to the same conclusions that we have come to, Brother L, that there's something wrong, before it's taking place here in the so-called United States Corporation. And are we citizens? And if we're not, then what laws do we utilize in order to bring about justice? Well, we know that, President Barack Obama signed on to the Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous People. And based on that, indigenous people have the right to a nationality. All right? It was Article 5 in the draft, Article 6, in which that states that. After the official signing of it in 2007, September the 13th, 2007, to be right in his act, which would happen to have been the date, September 13th was the day in which that they said Tupac, who was called Tupac Amaru Shakur, died in 1996. 11 years just prior to that. Now, Obama signs on to it December the 6th, 2010, making the United States Corporation have to re-examine what is taking place. Then you have people like Mitt Romney and other ones, as we just listened in the video, in which that stated specifically that we're not U.S. citizens. Based on the Dred Scott case now.
Mm-hmm.
I remember going before the North Carolina Bar Association. And they was trying to, and I gave some paperwork stating that you have one of our nationals. And so they brought me before the bar saying that I was practicing law without a license. Now, anybody knows you don't need a license to practice law.
Mm-hmm.
So I go, and they read my documentation, and they voted on it, how true the documentation was that I wrote. Do you know, Brother L, that more than half of the people in there raised their hands in favor of my documentation, that it was true? And the information that I spoke about specifically concerning us not being citizens, that was real? But when you have an Alabama senator by the name of Scott Beeson, and he states specifically that so-called black Americans are not Indians but Aborigines, and then you have to get on later on and apologize on national TV for saying it. And then you look at the definition of American, it says the Aboriginals are color copper races found here by the Europeans. And this is in Noah Webster's Dictionary, 1849, 1854, 1828, 1859 editions, and etc. And this brother L, this was he said this back in 2011, June 19, 2011. And he's being investigated for gambling industry in the state of Alabama. But the senator, Scott Beason, he states, and the FBI taped this, all right, of a conversation between him and Green Track. It was home to Green Track, but this was by a conversation between him and Benjamin Lewis. And Benjamin Lewis says, that's y'all Indians. And then
still trying to wake them up. Right,
and then Beason replied, they're Aborigines, but they're not Indians. Hold up. Let's go back to that conversation that these Albions just had concerning you. Why would Representative Benjamin Lewis, Republican now, state that that's y'all Indians? I thought we weren't Indians.
Mm-hmm.
And Beason goes on and says they're Aboriginal, but they're not Indians.
So he knows.
Right. And he gets on TV and he says, I don't know why I made those statements. I'm sorry if it hurt anyone. I take them back and blah, blah, blah.
Mm-hmm. He was told to.
Right. Because he broke the oath. He let the cat out the bag. And obviously the FBI agent who was taping this, or agents who was taping this, didn't know that was a Masonic oath amongst them. And they let the cat out the bag. So now they wanted to make it seem like he didn't know what he was talking about, like the word Aborigine was actually a term applied to just Australian indigenous group. Oh, are you saying that they come from Australia?
That's what most people think, though.
Right, I know. So Beason replies that he didn't recall what he meant by the remark. And then they say that the African Americans are hardly Aboriginal to the region. They're hardly Aboriginal to the region. Because they don't know our history, or they do, but they wanted to make sure that it would be confused and muddled based on him telling the truth. But even Malcolm said it. Malcolm in the Black Man's History, Malcolm X stated, I think it was December 1962. He said those people who were here before Adam, and he always referred to these people as Aborigines, which meant what? Black folks. We never found a white Aborigine. Aborigines are called natives, and they're always dark-skinned people. You and I are Aborigines. But you don't like being called an Aborigine. You want to be called an American. Aborigine actually means from the beginning. It's two Latin words. Ab means from, original. Aborigine replies from the beginning, or the beginning. And Aborigines is only the term applied to those dark-skinned people who have been on this earth since the beginning of the universe. You know that going way back. What do you mean since the beginning of the universe? All right, so even Malcolm told us that we was Aborigines.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So we're going to stop right there. We're going to go to the phone lines. For those who have any comments or questions, give us a call at 626-414-3535. That's 626-414-3535. Once again, that's 626-414-3535. And we're going to go to my man El-Bey, the Black Magician, Magi, to Trap or Freedom.
Yeah. ATD. Above the dome. Trap of freedom. It's family, tradition, heritage, the missing links, spiritual miracles, the awakenings, the walking sphinx. It's time to eat. Food for thought. It's the meta magician. Holy rainwater flows off my altar, channel through the seasons, elevate the reasons. What's the purpose of life to the living? Death to the conscious. At the end of days, clash of the titans. Zombies running rampant. Christ in the pamper, looking for a lamp. Revving at the church, plugging in the amp. Rock of the ages, son of the undead, vamping. Immortal rage, I bleed red ink on the page. Words and truth, no signature. To the blur from invisible literature. Sitting at the dock of the bay with Otis, having rituals. Turn the lights off, it can get real quick, sir. Melting pot mix, I'm in search for a fix. Walking backwards, looking forwards, patiently waiting. Don't ignore it, holding two swords like peace signs aimed at your board.
Want to be caught in the trap of freedom? Do you want to be lost in the trap of freedom? Do you want to be caught in the trap of freedom? Do you want to be lost in the trap of freedom?
Darkness to light, walk into flight, hawk eyesight, interdimensional terabytes. Fuel for the journey, some late a few for the gurney. Colored in the book of law, no need for attorneys. I turn the page, feel the script like a doctor coming out the cage. I'm the lion, fed grain, sticks and stones, no pain. A worker's only worth his gain, attempting to keep my inner sane. With lifestyle changes, high than mountain plains. 7 thoughts, 7 vaults, no faults, who's to blame? It ain't the same, they taking names, I feel the sun. It ain't no fun if the homie can't have none. I see you run like Hussein, like none. It seems frightening, exciting, I go with streaming lightning. I'm the Nick and Loki at night.
Do you want to be caught in the trap of freedom? Do you want to be lost in the trap of freedom? Do you want to be caught in the trap of freedom? Do you want to be lost in the trap of freedom?
Yeah, time, space is obsolete. Locate the unlocal, way above yet so below. The permanency of non-movement. ATV, above the dome. Trap of freedom. Blackwater, the meta magician. Mad scientist on the track. Peace.
All right, be back. First Water Radio, your host, Dr. Alim-Bey, co-host, Brother Fahim L. We're in the building, and we've been talking about Jesse Williams' speech and its connection to the latest killing, Alton Sterling. All right. Oh, yeah, we went to the, all right, if those we don't have any questions right now, remember to call in number 626-414-3535. But we do have some comments in which that's been posted in the chat room, and it's coming from I Am the Universe, and basically saying that English is a very tricky tongue, and it is. That's why we have to study etymology. And it states there is not much difference between the two terms, native and naive. All right? And they believe that the Native Americans were naive because they were just because they did not have the belief of selfishness and the belief that, you know, this was mine and this is yours type of thing. All right. All right. So
the native naive, huh?
right.
First time I heard that. Okay.
Mhm. Right. We got to go to the phone lines. We have area code 678. Area code 678. You're on the line. Peace.
Peace.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Yes.
Hi, peace, brothers. How y'all doing?
Peace.
Very well, sister. How you doing?
I'm doing good. I'm doing good. Thank you. This is just like you was just saying as naive, just like the word nice. You know,
right.
That we think nice means kind, and it's actually not that. But
right.
I have a question. 4th of July just passed. And that was declaring the Declaration of Independence, right?
Right.
And I'm wondering, the original of the Declaration of Independence, and that means that's a contract. So what do that mean in that? It just popped in my head in that way. So I have not clarified it in a way, and I want to see if you get what I'm saying with that. Would it be void, or would it be fraudulent?
Well, actually, yeah, the 4th of July, in which that deals with their independence, allegedly, from what they told us, was from Great Britain, and the King George III, who married actually Queen Sophia Charlotte, in which that Charlotte, North Carolina is named after, who was melanated, and based on pictures that we seen of him, he actually was melanated. So they was called the British or the Brutish Moors.
Right, okay.
Mm-hmm. Now, what happened is that that's where the term brute stems from, as in someone who's pushy or, who's a thug, in a sense, or whatever term you want, whatever synonym that you want to use for it. But somebody who thinks the way that they want to enforce you to abide by them, essentially. Now, the first declaration was called a declaration. And that's the one that we actually built for them or made for them based off of meetings that they had with the indigenous people, in particular those from the Iroquois Confederation. All right? You had many who went to the Iroquois Confederation and sat amongst them to learn government. Mm-hmm. This is who taught the Albion's government.
Right.
Were the Iroquois. And this is where they get, their design for Constitution from.
Okay.
All right. So
can you excuse me, I'm sorry, can you spell Iroquois for me, please?
Iroquois. Iroquois. I think IROQUOIS, if I'm not mistaken. IROQUOIS. Mm-hmm. Iroquois. And you want to look under the Treaty of Peace, which is called the Treaty. Treaty.
Is that the treaty? That's not the Treaty of Peace and Friendship, is it?
No, the Treaty of Peace and Friendship came after.
Oh.
That came in 1786. The Declaration of a declaration came, of course, 1776, before it became the Declaration of Independence, which they renamed and then asserted our power, because there was actually two forms of government at one time. you had the American government, which that's what we had, and then you had the United States Corporation said government. All right,
So
this is why you have two seals. This is why you have two seals on the back of the dollar bill. Our seal is the seal in which that is the pyramid in the eye. This seal in which that we gave them at the time to utilize as the corporation, which they always use. They rarely use the pyramid in the eye. Is the so-called phoenix, which is the eagle with the 13 arrows, talents in his talents, and so forth and so on, and 13 feathers on his tail, and so forth and so on. So the number 13 come very relevant because they became the 13th tribe, called the Eagle Tribe, as part of the Iroquois Confederation in order to learn that process of government.
Okay.
And that's where they also learned, as also part of not just the Iroquois, but also the Algonquin. They went amongst the Algonquin, too, and learned the three forms of government, the legislative, the executive, and the judicial branch of government. Okay. So we gave them the keys of government, which is generator, operator, destroyer, or as they say, God, which is what is on their dollar bill, government ordinance department. Okay, so that's how that really came about, was based from our influence. If you, it was in Florida, in Philadelphia, which was the, some say it was the first capital, some say it was the second capital after New York being the Empire State, which was allegedly the first capital, but the first capital with a Supreme Court was Philadelphia. Okay. And what they said was that in Philly, this took place at Liberty Hall, and that a mysterious man appeared in the hall that day who told them to sign that document. But you'll get the speech. That speech really was, which was the Declaration of Independence, that speech really was, the speaker was actually John Hanson.
Okay. Is that where they get the term, or they were saying that it was only really two that put what John Hancock is? Is that what the real John Hancock?
Well, John Hancock was a Moor also, and he put his, and allegedly he signed, the Constitution first.
Yeah, it was two Moors.
But there was no need for us to sign their Constitution, really, because we was not part of their government at the time.
Exactly.
But John Hanson and John Hancock are two different people, allegedly.
Yeah, because
if you look on the back of the dollar bill, you would see two so-called Moors, or i.e., said blacks on the back of the $2 bill.
Right.
And those two, and one was John Hanson, who was sitting to the left. The one sitting to the right was Chief Justice Benjamin Banneker, who was known as Ben-Bey Emmanuel Muali. All right. This is why we know that, and this is what they said. Now, the words that were spoken by John Hanson on July the 4th, 1776. This is what he said. He says, "They may stretch our necks on all the gibbets in the land. They may turn every rock into a scaffold, every tree into a gallows, every home into a grave, and yet the words on that parchment can never die. They may pour our blood on 1,000 scaffolds, and yet from every drop that dies, the axe of a new champion of freedom will spring into birth. The British king may blot out the stars of..." Now this is the word. Now, why is he using Native American terminology? Because this is the word he's getting ready to use. He said, "Kakach Manito which means great spirit, from the sky. But he cannot blot out his words written on that parchment there. The work of Catch Manito may punish his words never. The word of this declaration will live in the world long after our bones are dust. To the mechanics in his workshop, they will speak hope. To the slave in the mines, freedom. But to the coward king, these words will speak in tones of warning. They cannot choose, but he. Sign that parchment. Sign if the next moment the gibbet rope is about your neck. Sign if the next minute this hall rings with the clash of fallen axes. Sign by all the hope in life or death, as men, as husbands, as fathers, as brothers. Sign your name to that parchment or be accursed forever. Sign, and not only for yourself, but for all ages, for that parchment will be the textbook of freedom, the Bible of the rights of men forever. Nay, do not start and whisper with surprise. It is true, your own heart witnessed it. Catch Manito proclaimed it. Look at this strange band of exiles and outcasts suddenly transformed into a people, a handful of men, weak in arms but mighty in Manito's like faith. Nay, look at your recent achievements, your Bunker Hill, your Lexington, and then tell me if you can that Catch Manito has not given America to be free. Now, this is allegedly the words of John Hanson on July the 4th, 1776. And John Hanson is said to be the first president of the United States, or what is called the United States Assembly, or the United States Congress Assembly.
So that's the reason why we don't have the original Declaration of Independence?
Yeah,
that's why
because they hid the original declaration, which is called a declaration. So now we only have the Declaration of Independence.
Okay. That's two different
right,
documents.
It's two documents.
So the last document,
the one that we wrote for them
claimed
was the one that we wrote for them was a declaration, not the Declaration of Independence.
And that's the legit one. So this
one, that's the legit one.
That
so see, when they went de facto, totally went de facto officially, they hid a lot of information and did a reconstruction.
Right. Mm-hmm.
Just like recently, people are just finding out the original 20 sections to the 13th Amendment.
Mm-hmm.
They did away with 18 parts of it, and it's only 2 that shows up in the Constitution that most of us have read. But it was originally 20 sections to the 13th Amendment. You know,
like
so
when they changed
there's a lot
amendment.
of trickery in which that is going on when it comes to the politics.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Just like the 14th Amendment, when they changed and then put was free man and free person and just put person.
Mm-hmm.
They changed your history with a swift of a pen, and we still don't get it, do we?
That's right.
Peace, brothers. Thank you, Brother L. You have a good night. Thank you, Dr. Alim. You have a good night. And this is
you too, God. Appreciate you. Thank you.
And I will see y'all next Wednesday. Peace.
All right. No doubt. Appreciate you. Thank you. All right, Brother L. Any closing statements? Oh, hold on. We got one more call line. We got area code 410. Area code 410. You on the line?
Peace, brothers. Peace.
Peace, brother.
What's going on, man? I had to come in the last second. How your brothers feeling on this hot night?
You're doing well, brother.
We're doing good. Glad you got a chance to call in.
Oh, for sure. I had to chime in yeah. So I guess whatever dependence or independence that people supposed to be celebrating. You know, one white guy, or quote unquote white guy, he just straight up said it's his favorite holiday because he get to eat stuff and light stuff on fire, basically. So, you know, it's kind of funny when you look at the almost like the I don't want to say psychology behind it, but the aggression. You can see like the aggression embedded in each holiday that they kind of
right. Well, yeah. It's no coincidence that, you know, Brother Alton Sterling's murder took place, you know, during that ritualistic time period of July the 4th.
Mhm. Yep.
You know.
Yeah, man. So as far as the you know, I was around my aunt's birthday on 4th of July or whatever 1360, whatever calendar we using. But
right.
But I guess for the sake of this society, the 4th of July, and you know, she supposed to be all smart and everything, graduated University of New York, and kind of went into that whole Hillary Clinton thing, and you know, after a while you gotta humble yourself. It ain't about how much you know. You know, you just don't go around flashing knowledge, so to speak. So you already know when you know you just let somebody talk. You know, you ain't gotta go into it. But she just kept on going on about it, about Hillary Clinton. So I'm like, and when before I say that, you notice, I know you've been noticed this a minute ago, but how there's like a conflation of conspiratorial programs on national TV and everything. Like you remember back in the day, at least mid '90s, it wasn't none of that. As far as I remember my consciousness.
Exactly, it wasn't.
Right. So now we you know, all this you know, anytime you got what's his name, the wrestler, there was the wrestler that was in California, the governor.
Right. You talking about Jesse Ventura?
Yeah. Anytime you got him on TV talking that stuff, but so some was like Hillary Clinton don't have no shady.
I think he was from Minnesota. I think he was in Minnesota. Mhm.
Yeah, he was.
Mhm.
Yeah, and he straight up said that you know, the politics is like it's equated to wrestling. You know, in the ring we all hate each other. We get mad, aggression, and then after the show we go home and have a dinner together.
Right.
You know, but she was trying to deny Hillary Clinton's shadowy history, and you know, I just paused it right there. I ain't even go into the, you know, what was it called, the murder cases of Bill Clinton in Arkansas. Remember the body?
Oh, yeah.
The whole...
Yeah, in the 1990s. Yeah, before he became president. Yeah, they was able to, and they was able to see the murders. I mean, shit. Hell, when he was in there, hell, he killed Ron Brown.
Yeah.
Hell, I mean, dude had a 45 or 9mm slug to the top of the dome, found on the damn crash plane. Plane crashed, and they still had to kill him. So obviously he wasn't dead yet.
Right.
They said that the female who was on there, who was the so-called stewardess, you know, they ushered her, you know, they was taking her to the car, and then somehow she mysteriously died, you know, type of thing. So it was a lot of stuff going on with that. Dick Gregory speaks about that in detail, you know, from during that time period. I mean, hell, we had there was military people on, I think it was 60 Minutes, or either 2020, one of them shows back then, who was stating that they did the autopsy on Ron Brown's body and found this damn 9mm or 45 slug in his dome.
Top of the head.
Right, at the top of the head.
So that probably tell you that, unfortunately, the brother was trying to get up.
Yeah.
Most likely he was trying to get up. But, yeah, so she you know, I was trying to think of something basic because years ago I used to carry around a little paper that had the presidential connections, the familiar connections, the bloodlines.
Right.
Like, just for the basic average Joe, you know, like just, I mean, hell, it was a national, you know, on public TV that Obama, quote unquote, Obama was, Dick Cheney's fifth cousin and Bush's sixth cousin or something. So, just, you know, just trying to galvanize the consciousness a little bit. But when she went into the whole Democrats and Republic thing, I was like, okay, this is perfect. So let me stop you right there with the whole rant. And, you know, just something basic when you can get like a baseline when you get like a logical baseline, so that way somebody can hook on to what you're saying. So I said, how come in school we was indoctrinated with pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic which it stands, and then all of a sudden she was like, oh yeah, I know it's a republic, but she was going back and forth with this whole democracy and republic, but then all of a sudden when it's like you click a little light bulb, and I guess you kind of move from there. But yeah, man, I think the consciousness is picking up. You could definitely tell anytime. What was that dude named? I threw away the TV a minute ago, man. People were talking about the BET dude that gave that speech.
Yeah, Jesse Williams.
Yeah. Anytime you got stuff like that popping off, and even the sports fans, the MK Ultra shit. What was that dude, man? He basically went in a trance right in front of the whole interview. He just went into a straight trance, and it had your average LeBron James fan questioning like, "What's up with the dude?" So yeah, you could tell that the consciousness is shifting around. Oh yeah, and about the credit, man, I was reading a little article about the credit bubble, and we all know that we like 17 trillion in debt or whatever. And it can't sustain. It can't sustain forever. But one of the people that used to work for Goldman Sachs, he said that we passed the expansionary point of the credit bubble, and then you got the distribution. Like we were basically on one of the last phases of the credit bubble, the cycle. So I was just wondering what you thought about that.
It's true. As a matter of fact, on this type of system in which they've been doing here since 1913, 1914, according to the Reserve Bank, actually this type of system weren't supposed to last no more than 70 years based on economists and financiers estimate. So really, this is long overdue as far as a reset to this type of system. You know.
What a country got to go bankrupt every 70 years, ain't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's every 70 years because if you count from each one, I think, each one we had, it has been 70 years apart, as far as I remember.
Right. It normally is about that. So that's what they've been working on is that, about 70 years or so, they have to do a reset, and right now, that was Obama did a reset really in 2008 when he came in by doing the stimulus program. You know. Hold on, let me bring in this other caller, area code 540, area code 450.
Peace. What's going on?
Peace. My hotep.
Hey, how you doing, Dr. Alim? Hope all is well.
Yeah, everything is good, God.
Brother L, I hope you're back in better health.
All right, thank you, brother.
Well, I just wanted to kind of touch on a couple of quick points and ask you your opinion. The brother brought up the financial deal, so I wanted to see what you thought about, Britain leaving the EU. And
right.
I have a lot of coworkers that lost like a whole lot of money in stock or whatnot. So,
right.
Do you think that the Britain leaving the EU will ultimately lead to maybe the Federal Reserve tanking? Or do you think that Britain's going to use them leaving the EU to basically work on this one world bank type of thing they're trying to work on?
Yeah, I think that's what they're working on. Everything will begin to start falling up under the IMF, the International Monetary Fund. Mm-hmm. On the back of your Social Security card, that's called your International Monetary Fund or IMF number, mm-hmm. which is registered or connected to the Federal Reserve Bank. Mm-hmm. So, if anything, then the EU, the Federal Reserve Bank, all of that would be tied to the International Monetary Fund system. You mm-hmm. know, so really, right now they can't get away from it. Even with what Africa is doing right now, setting up the United States of Africa, with Gaddafi being killed, and which that he was going to use the country's finances and gold to form actual currency, and the fact that concept is, I haven't heard them really talk about it and come back on the table with that, because they know what happens if they do. So that means they're going to have to join the IMF.
Mm. Oh, and speaking of that, what about what Venezuela going through right now? With they took out Chavez, and now they don't have no food in Venezuela. So, politics as usual, right?
Exactly. Well, what they're going to have to end up doing, it seems that the so-called president who is in there now is going to have a choice but to beg the IMF or World Bank for funding, or some type of funds to be generated. So he's going to have to make some type of deal with the IMF or World Bank in order to get that done, instead of letting his people starve. Which, that land is so fertile till, you're in a country in which that deals with, a warm population, a warm climate, I should say, a weather condition. There should be,
plenty of food, right?
Plenty of food all over the place. We went to the Bahamas. We went even down to Florida, to Miami. You walk down the street and you're seeing, ugly fruit. You're seeing graviola. Fruit, you're seeing which is called sour saps. You're seeing all types of fruit all over the place. Oranges, everything is right there. Just walking down the street.
Mm-hmm. Not even just that, growing in people's backyards and stuff. Man.
Right, growing in people's backyards. Right. So that's ridiculous that you have to depend upon the government for that type of resource, Now it's people mostly within the city structures, But Miami is a city, but yet you can still walk down the street and see fruit all over the place. So there's no excuse for not having food, So that's the situation right there, brother. That our people have to come back into understanding of,
Yeah. Definitely. And then I wanted to ask you about the when I heard about the guy today, Sterling, and I find that interesting that one, I feel like everything is spiritual first, and with Sterling, you got the whole Donald Sterling, blah blah blah. Right. You got the whole, Sterling in silver and related to the moon.
And silver done jumped up to now $19, right, an ounce.
So do you think, I feel like it's kind of a big ritual to me, the way the video is being shown, you know what I'm saying?
Right.
It's like
like
the Super Bowl or anything else, you get all of these people looking at the same thing, and they put all their emotions into it, and their emotions is on the lower, you know what I'm saying, in the lower self and that higher self realm, which just gives the beast more, you know what I'm saying, energy for him to suck off of. So you think it's, what do you think of the timing of everything being, you know, not necessarily the 4th, but 2 days after the 4th? And it's actually a 13-day if you think about it, because it's July the 6th, which is the 13th. And then it's a 9-year, so, you know, 9 is Mars and death and fight and
but
all
the
of that.
fact that it happened so close to the 4th just shows and proves that we're really looking at something in which that is ritualistic. And that's what I was saying. You know, it's ritualistic. So we see that just yesterday, the FBI let Hillary off the hook for those what?
Yeah, for the emails and stuff.
For those emails. You know?
I sometimes feel like, I don't know if it's how big of a ritual it is, or if it's just let's create this issue so we can cover up, you know what I'm saying? Like the Hillary thing. Like, if this didn't happen today, I'm sure this would be maybe front page news, but then, you know, let's kill somebody else and see how we can get on the front page with this, and we'll put Hillary on page 12, you know.
Bingo. Exactly.
So, and then I know they murdered a brother yesterday, too, down in Tupelo, Mississippi. I don't know if you heard about the police dog. The police dog attacked him or something, and the guy fought the dog back, and then the officer killed him or something like that.
Yeah.
So, man, that's well, I appreciate your commentary. You know, you always do the great work. You know, keep the good vibes going.
I appreciate you, brother, for coming on. Thank you.
Appreciate you, God.
All right, peace, brother.
Peace.
Brother L, you got any closing comments?
All I can say is another good one we done.
Right, no doubt about it. Appreciate you coming on and being part of this broadcast. And also, brother, from 410 area, you got any closing comments?
Oh, no, brother. I thought I muted myself. I'm just enjoying the show, man.
Oh, okay. Okay, well, we appreciate you, bro. Thank you. All right, so we're going to close out tonight, y'all. We appreciate y'all coming on, checking this out, and essentially, we out.
Peace.
Peace.
I don't need to be a dope boy, my poetry is dope enough. Trapping interstellar while my third eye open up. See through all the lies that y'all tell it with a straight face. Return of the luminous ones. Y'all better make way to find a chapter. Find a collapse on all you politicians. They politicking how to lead a world, no pot to piss in. The way I think is more deep and in the Grand Canyon. I guarantee this black man would be the man standing. My premonition matched the Olmec calendar. It's always accurate like a lightweight challenger. For all you wicked riches and the Wizard of Oz, you and that man behind the curtain, yeah, y'all fixing to fall. Only a matter of time before shit hit the fan. Here's an idiot's guide for you on how to get a man. I don't need a bunch of homers to ride or die with me. I can call on Hey Roo to fly the skies with me. We going through the transition and that's all she wrote. Put on my uncle, gave my Jesus peace back to the Pope. Came back for ancient times to bring heaven on earth. I was the last golden child that returned to the birth. We going through the transition and that's all she wrote. Put on my uncle, gave my Jesus peace back to the Pope. Came back for ancient times to bring heaven on earth. I was the last golden child that returns to his birth. When I'm riding on the city streets, never really miss a beat. To the point of no return, unless I turn another cheek. Catch me on my daily vibe, smooth as I wanna be. Just being me, never chillin' with the wannabes. God in the flesh, dated bad sister latches. Because my history is more than they can understand it. My melanated skin, star brush from the astro. I'm made of dark energy, created from black holes. Know thyself, the only one you can lean on. I got some school books that y'all can break y'all weed on. Our here's Martin Luther King and slave ships. But what about the underwater cities and spaceships? My mystical mind, we had the government covering. But if the old man tip will fly away like a mothership, we're African people, we're the real Anunnaki, wearing feathers on their heads, just a few feet taller than me. Through the transition, and that's all she wrote. Put on my auntie, gave my Jesus peace back to the Pope. Came back my ancient times and bring heaven on earth. I was the last golden child that returned since birth. We going through the transition, and that's all she wrote. Put on my auntie, gave my Jesus peace back to the Pope. Came back my ancient times and bring heaven on earth. I was the last golden child that returned since birth. Yo, don't look at me the same, I ain't nothing like I used to be. Upgraded daily through the lies and all the foolery. My dream became lucid, I travel back in time, collecting life data for my subconscious mind. That father let me know that anything is possible by pulling down the universe through my crown chakra. Manipulate the energy is all an illusion. Knowing who you are kills all the confusion. Why 85% judge off my appearance? I use alchemy to create the word potential. My lyrics turn divas right back at the queens. Why dope boys the same twice appearing back on the scene. Everybody gone mad, blaming media outlet. The new black Hollywood chosen straight out the project. Pomo agenda war, sucking up to the master. While the whole community going up in disaster. We going through the transition, and that's all she wrote. Put on my auntie, gave my Jesus peace back to the Pope. Came back my ancient times and bring heaven on earth. I was the last golden